Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise you and I just want to thank you, Father, for this day. And I thank you, Father, for this 29th day of the month of Av, as we are coming to the end of a month, a beautiful month, where the month of Av being the month of where you are really drawing us. You are drawing us closer to you, that we would be able to come into that place of coming up higher and being seated with you in those heavenly places, and where your breath has come to breathe in us so that you may draw us closer to your bosom. And I thank you, Father, that as we stand at the gate of where we're almost going to enter into the month of Elul, this very significant month, this month of where the king is in the field, this month of where you are the one that is being able to do the deep work in each one of our hearts as we prepare ourselves for the next 40 days as we enter into this month of Elul, where we would be preparing ourselves for the significant time of the full feasts. And so, Father, I just want to thank you. I thank you because in this time of this month of Elul, it's the month of the Vav, where you are wanting to put your tent peg in us and join us back to you, so that we will be joined, securely joined with you, for you to be able to take us on the journey that you have as we prepare ourselves for these full feasts. And so, my Father, I just want to thank you for this prophetic word. I thank you for what you are doing. I thank you that you are on your throne, and your throne will be established on this earth. Your precepts, your ordinances, your purposes, and your plans will be able to be enthroned. As man's purposes and plans and man's kingdoms come crashing to the ground, you are the one that is going to be exalted, because man exalts themselves, but you will bring every lofty and high thing, you will bring it to the ground. And so, Father, I just want to praise you and I just want to thank you for what you are doing and what you have done. Exactly a week ago, you gave this prophetic word. And I just want to thank you, Father, that you alone came to reveal yourself in such a powerful and mighty way. And when you bring a message, man cannot fabricate things, man cannot put things together, because you are the one that puts things together. It's not done by man's little understanding, but it's your way and what you do. And so, my Father, I just want to praise you and I just want to thank you that you alone will just anoint my lips, and that this be a word that can come forth, that comes from your heart, and that you alone will be able to come and do what it is that needs to be done through this word, in order for those who have ears to hear, they need to hear what it is that the Ruach of Yahuwah is saying in this hour. And so, my Father, I just want to praise you and I just want to thank you that you alone will be able to open the mind of our understanding, open our hearts, for us to be able to receive that which you, truly you, are saying to us in this hour. I praise and I thank you for this in YAHUSHUA's name. Hallelujah. So last week, Thursday, on the 22nd of Av, and it was the 6th of August, on the 22nd of Av, I was like sort of waking up, and all of a sudden I go and I pick up my phone and I look at the time, and as I look at the time, it was 5:44. And as I put down my phone after looking at 5:44, I heard a crash in the house. And I thought, my goodness, what on earth has happened in this house? What has fallen? Something's fallen at 5:44 in the morning. So immediately I open up my door, Elsie opens up her door, Rosa comes out, we all come out and we're all thinking, what has just happened in this house? And all of a sudden, just outside Elsie's door, I had a picture of King David playing his harp on the wall. And now the picture of King David came crashing to the ground. Now, beloveds, you know that I have had this supernatural thing happen in 2023, when in October 2023, within a time span of 2 weeks, the Father decided to bring many messages based on things of hanging on my wall that would come crashing to the ground. So on the 20th of October 2023, a priest that I had lighting a menorah came crashing to the ground. And this was just after a prophetic word had been released of the changing of the guard, where the Father was going to bring down an evil priesthood and he was going to raise up a set-apart priesthood. And now, then just after that, within 2 weeks, I had a picture of 12 tribes up on the wall, and all of a sudden the picture of the 12 tribes came crashing on the ground. On the same day that the 12 tribes came crashing on the ground was the same day that all of a sudden a magnet on my fridge of Jerusalem, that was like a porcelain Jerusalem magnet, came crashing on the ground. So there has been a lot of incidences of things coming crashing on the ground when nobody touches it, nobody does anything to it. It just all of a sudden comes crashing to the ground. The most amazing thing about this is that the whole frame with the photo in it, with the picture in it, this picture was painted by an artist in Arad, Messianic Jew, who painted this, and this one was given to Elsie, and then I have one of Abraham that was given to me. But what is interesting, this thing came crashing to the ground, but the glass did not break. The glass did not break. There was a little bit on the side, just a little bit of a chip. But how does a photo frame, fall to the ground and a glass does not break? It was the same as when the menorah came crashing to the ground. Remember the menorah? When Gracie went jumping on the menorah and the menorah came crashing to the ground, and all 6 of the cups on top of the menorah crashed except for one. And there was a message behind the menorah crashing that he's going to break the arm of the flesh. All 6 crashed and broke except for one. And there came a message out of the menorah crashing to the ground. There came a message of the priest crashing to the ground. There came a message of the 12 tribes crashing to the ground. So now I sat and I said, Abba, what are you wanting to say to me? Now this is King David. This is King David that's coming crashing to the ground. So as we all sat looking at this, and I'm thinking, sure, every time this happens, the fear of Yahuwah comes upon me, because I know that a supernatural thing has taken place, that the Father is speaking to me in a very profound way. And I have understood that in the beginning, when the priest came crashing down, it was very difficult, because I thought that this was a message for me, and what have I done wrong now? But in the end, it was a message that he was bringing to his people. And so it is with this message, because with this message, we are going to look at this in various different aspects, because the first thing that we need to understand is this is representing King David. This is representing King David with playing a harp. So, what is it all going to entail. So we can look at the surface of it and say, okay, this is King David, this is the worship, because he's in this picture, in this very painting, he's playing a harp. And so we can turn around and say, yes, it's going to be the end of a worship that's been taking place for the true worshippers that are going to arise. And I will go into all of that because it's just amazing, because within the last 2 months, I have 2 lots of worshippers that have been in this house, which is part of the restoration of the fallen tent of David, of the restoration of the true worship that is going to arise. And that is what the Father has done in this house. And so it's so amazing that all of this is speaking a message. So the first thing that I am having to be able to share is I had to be able to go back to the time, because that was very significant, because I had just picked up my watch. I was already awake, lying in my bed. I was already awake. But then I looked at my time, and as I looked at my time, it was 5:44. And then straight after I looked at that watch or my cell phone, I heard the crashing on the ground. So everything that was going to be around this, that the Father has done in this house, had to do with 5:44. Because this is the way that he has led me many times for me to understand how he speaks to me. Because the way the Father speaks to some people is not the same as he speaks to others, and we can't all be put in the same mold as people want to be put in the same mold. The Father speaks differently in different ways to different people. And so when he spoke to me, 5:44, the very first thing that I went and I did is I picked up my Bible to go see what is page 544 in my Bible. And so we are going to embark on a journey with this prophetic word, that by the time we get to the end of what the Father is saying in terms of what he's given me, we will understand what the Father is saying in terms of the prophetic word that he's releasing for the hour that we are in. Because understand, we are in a significant time. And the time that we are in is a time of, I can tell you now, where the kings are now going to be humbled. Father's going to bring down this is where we got to understand. Kingdoms are now going to crash. They're going to fall. They're going to come. Just as in 2023, he was talking about a priesthood, and how many men and women of Yahuwah have fallen since then. Either fallen that they've died, either fallen in sin. And much of this happened because the Father said he was changing. There was a changing of the guard. So we are going to be able to understand what the Father is trying to say to us in Ezekiel, because in my Bible, page 544 is talking about Ezekiel 17 and Ezekiel 18. And this is what we're going to be able to have to build our message on, because that was the message for 544 for me to understand. As that a painting came down, it's got to do with whatever's written in this Bible. So we are going to have a look at what this whole message represents. So in these chapters, the prophet Ezekiel is addressing Judah. Very significant for us to understand. So Ezekiel is addressing Judah, and he talks about Judah's sin, and he talks about how Judah, specifically in Ezekiel 17, Judah is wanting to put their trust and their faith in their allies. And how the Father is going to bring judgment, but at the same time, he is going to raise up a new kingdom. So we've got to understand that everything about what the Father wants to share with us is about bringing an unholy, a unholy order that's going to fall to the ground. But there is a new order that is going to raise up, because understand, the glass did not break. When my priest fell to the ground, everything broke. And this is what we'll understand about King David's bloodline for us to understand, because this is King David, and this has to do with King David's bloodline, and this has to do with the house of Judah, and this has to do with what the Father is doing in this process. So we are going to read through Ezekiel chapter 17 as we go along. I'm going to read and then I'm going to explain. So in Ezekiel chapter, I'm going back to, I'm just going to start in page 543, because we need to be able to understand the beginning of Ezekiel 17 in order for us to be able to get to the part of where he's speaking in Ezekiel chapter 17. He's giving the explanation of what he's read in Ezekiel chapter 17 from verses 1. So we are going to read. And the word of Yahuwah came to me saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle and speak a parable to the house of Israel. And you shall say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, the great eagle with large wings of long pinions, covered the feathers of various colors, came to Lebanon and took the top of the cedar. He plucked off the topmost of its young wing twigs and brought it to a land of traders. In a city of merchants he placed it. He also took some of the seed of the land and planted it in the field for seed. He took it by many waters, set it like a willow tree. So it grew and became a low spreading vine. Its branches turned towards him, and its roots were under it. And it became a vine, and brought forth branches, and sent out shoots. And there was another great eagle, with large wings and many feathers. And see, this vine bent its roots towards him, and stretched its branches towards him, to water it, away from the beds where it was planted. And it was planted in a good field by many waters, to bring forth branches, to bear fruit, to be a splendid vine. Say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, is it going to thrive? Is he not going to pull up its roots and cut off its fruit? Let it wither, all of its sprouting leaves wither, without great power or many people to pluck it up by its roots. See, it is planted, it is going to thrive. Would it not utterly wither when the east wind touches it? Wither in the beds where it grows. And the word of Yahuwah came to me saying, Please say to the rebellious house, Do you not know what these mean? Say, see, the sovereign of Babel went to Jerusalem and took its sovereign and heads and brought them with him to Babel. And he took one of the royal seed and made a covenant with him and put him under an oath, and he took away the mighty of the land, so that reign would be brought low and not lift itself up, but God his covenant, that it might stand. But he rebelled against him by sending his messengers to Mitzrayim. So let's just stop here and let's just go and let's just have a look at what he's saying. So in the story, he is telling us in this riddle, he's talking about two large eagles. And there is a cedar tree and there is a vine. And the first eagle takes the top branches of a cedar tree, which is basically going to be able to look at that first eagle is going to represent Babylon. That was Babylon. And it plants it plants a local seed. It plants a seed. And that seed that is being planted is King Zedekiah as a humble vine under its rule. So you see, remember, we've worked through the book of Jeremiah. In the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah kept telling them, you are going into Babylon. It is the Father's will. This is what the Father wants. The Father is wanting you to go. You are going into exile. I am taking you out of the land. I'm exiling you to Babylon, and I am the one that's going to work through King Nebuchadnezzar that is going to be able to bring you into exile. He's the one who did it. But all the false prophets stood up against Jeremiah and said, no, 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 no. We have a covenant with the Father. This is not going to happen. So we see that King Nebuchadnezzar then, what does he do? So the rain would be brought low and not lifted up. So he says, and he took one of the royal seed. Who is the royal seed? So he takes one of these, the royal seed, and made a covenant with him. So he took one of the local people that came out of Israel, which happens to be the seed, which happened to be a royal seed, which happens to be King Zedekiah, and he made a covenant with him and put him under oath, and he took away the mighty of the land. So he puts him, and this is where he humbles him, and he is the vine under his rule. So he's that vine that is under the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar. But the vine grows and turns its roots towards the second eagle. So the vine is King Zedekiah, and now the vine grows and puts its roots towards the second eagle, which is now Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. And now they turn to him for help to rebel against the first eagle. You see, so he says, so that the rain would be brought low. So you got to understand, the Father's will was to bring Zedekiah's reign to be made low because of his arrogance and his pride, because of their rebellion against the Father. The Father was going to humble them. And so it says, so that the rain would be brought low, but he rebelled against him by sending his messengers to Mitzrayim to give him horses and many people. Shall he thrive? Shall he escape? Who is doing these? And shall he break a covenant and still escape? So what is he saying? At the end of the day, the covenant that was made with Babylon, that the king of Babylon made with him, was the same as the covenant that the Father had made with his people. But they had broken an everlasting covenant. They had broken the covenant with the Father. And so he says, as I live, declares the Master Yahuwah, in the place where the sovereign dwells, who sent him up to reign, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke. And so he says, they despised my covenant and they broke it. So here we see these eagles are representing Babylon and Egypt. King Zedekiah of Judah made a covenant. He made a covenant to be able to be loyal to King Nebuchadnezzar, but broke the covenant by turning to Egypt. And so we've got to understand, Father takes covenant very serious. And why is he bringing this parable? He's bringing the parable to be able to show that this is exactly what Israel has done, what Judah has done to him. They have broken the covenant, just as they broke the covenant with Babylon and turned to Egypt as their ally. So they have broken the covenant with the Father and turned to the nations as their allies and not to Abba Yahuwah. And so he says, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke, with him in the midst of Babel, he shall die. So now he's speaking up against King Zedekiah and he's saying, you shall die. And the Pharaoh with his great army and great company is not going to help him in the battle when they heap up a siege mound and build a wall to cut off many beams. And he despised the oath by breaking the covenant, and see, he has given his hand and he has done all this. He is not going to escape. So we've got to understand that there is nothing that is going to escape the Father in these last days, including the land of Israel, who now is a branch of Judah, as they are the ones that represent the house of Yahudah. Therefore, thus says the Master Yahuwah, as I live, my oath, which he has despised, and my covenant. You see, now he brings it to his oath that he made, and his covenant that he has despised. And my covenant which he has broken, shall I not put it on his own head? So what is he saying? As you have broken covenant with Babylon, so have you broken covenant with me, and it shall come on your own head. And that is why he dies. So, because of this, Judah will fall. But we see that even though Judah will fall, they are going to go into exile, and they will fall, and they will be in exile for a period of time. But the Father will, at his appointed time, once again raise up the house. So let us continue to read so that we can be able to continue to see the. So he says, and I shall spread. So he's saying, which he has despised, my covenant which he has broken, shall I not put it on his own head? And I shall spread my net over him, and he shall be taken in my snare. I mean, he even had his eyes gouged out. And I shall bring him to Babel, and enter into judgment with him. Therefore, the trespass which he committed against me, and all his fugitives, with all his bands, fall by the sword, and those who are left be scattered to every wind, and you shall know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken. So at the end of the day, understand, the Father spoke, and he said that he's going to scatter them to all the nations. And him and all those people that stood with him and went into military with him, and all those false prophets that were speaking up against Jeremiah, what happened to all of them? They too, some of those prophets too, were killed. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, and I shall take off the top of the highest cedar and set it out, and I myself shall pluck off a tender one from the topmost of its young twigs and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. Okay, so now, what is he talking about? What does this high cedar now represent? So I shall take from the topmost of this high cedar. So the high cedar is representing this line of Judah. The line of Judah. The lineage that came from David. The lineage that came out of the house of David, that has rebelled against Abba Yahuwah. And the kings, these kings are representing these high cedars. Those are the kings that represent these high cedars that were rebelling against the Father. And he warned them. He was warning them. And if we go look, let's just go look at Jeremiah, because in Jeremiah, we know that Jeremiah had a lot to speak up against the house of Israel. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2 from verses 35. And it says, and you say, because I'm innocent, certainly his discipline shall turn from me. See, I shall bring judgment on you, because you say, I have not sinned. You see, they were standing in their arrogance and their pride, which is what the Father is talking a lot to us at the moment, because there's many people standing in their arrogance and their pride, thinking that they stand so right before the Father, and they are standing, and he says, I have not sinned. So you see, in their arrogance and their pride, they're standing before the Father. These believers now I'm going to bring it into the believers, because remember, we are going to have to look at this in what the Father is trying to show us prophetically. So this was the house of Israel, and this was King Zedekiah, and he was standing, and he was standing, and he was saying, no, me, I am not, nothing is going to happen to me, because we have a covenant with the Father. So I have a covenant with the Father. Because I have a covenant with the Father, nothing's going to happen to me. And this is the covenant that they broke, the Father says, but they broke covenant. They broke the oath that they made before him. They broke the covenant. But now we expect to not receive judgment, because we pride ourselves in saying, but I am saved. I have covenant with the Father. Nothing is going to happen to me. Just like they thought nothing was going to happen to them. And he says, and then we'll turn around and we say, well, we haven't sinned. We haven't done anything wrong. We are the righteousness of Yahuwah. We are justified, just as if we never sinned. Those are the things that we quote out of our mouths. Because Yahushua died for me, therefore I'm the righteousness. I don't need to do anything. Why do you go about so much to change your way? Even of Mitzrayim you are to be ashamed, as you were ashamed of Ashur. Even from this one you shall go forth with your hands on your head, for Yahuwah has rejected those who trust, and you shall rejected those you trust, and you shall not prosper by them. So they were putting their trust and their faith in Mitzrayim. And he says, and in that which you trust, it shall not prosper. You shall not prosper by them. You shall not prosper by your allies. You shall not prosper by the allies that you're putting your trust and faith in. You shall not prosper by that. So modern day Israel puts their trust and their faith in their IDF. Modern day Israel puts their trust and their faith in their ally America. And they still today put their trust and their faith in the arm of the flesh. No different to what they were doing here. And saying, well, we have a covenant with the Father, and he's going to protect us. But they'd broken the covenant. They were not living according to the covenant of the Father. But yet they pride themselves to say, we have a covenant with the Father. And we have not sinned. So it is very dangerous for us to stand and not work in repentance, not walk in repentance, because, beloveds, like I said, never judge your right standing with him based on how he uses you, because he will even use a donkey, is the words that the Father gave me 20 years ago, that day it put the fear of Yahuwah in me to understand. Just because the Father uses you, just because you do all these things for the Father, just like they had a covenant with him, he was bringing them into exile. So now we go and we see, this is where he's saying that he has rejected them because they put their trust and their faith in the arm of the flesh. Beloveds, do you think we can continue to put our trust and our faith in the arm of the flesh, and the Father takes that very well? He doesn't take very well every single time we plan A and plan B. Plan A doesn't work, we turn to plan B and plan C. Because the Father is the only one that wants to be able to have you put your trust and your faith in him and him alone. So now we look at this tender twig, because it's talking about, and the high cedars, and I myself shall pluck off a tender one from the topmost of its young twigs, and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. So what does that lofty mountain represent? That lofty mountain is representing, because if this is the house of Yehudah, then that lofty mountain must represent Mount Zion. It represents Jerusalem. So what is this tender twig? So let's let's see. On the mountain height of Israel I planted, and it shall bring forth branches and bear fruit and become a big cedar, and under it shall dwell birds of every sort. In the shadow of its branches they shall dwell. So, this tender young twig is representing, that is on this tree, that is of this lineage of the house of David, that comes from the lineage of David, which is Yehudah, the line of Judah. There comes one that is going to come forth, and he's going to take shoot. He's the one that is going to bring hope, and he will grow, and then he will become mighty, and he will grow, and he will be able to become a ruler, and he becomes mighty. So if we go look at Isaiah chapter 11, so let's go to Isaiah, because where does it talk about a shoot that's going to come forth? Because it talks about a shoot, it talks about a root, it talks about a young twig that's going to come forth, because this is talking about a future kingdom. It's talking about a future kingdom. So if we're going to now go to Isaiah chapter 11, let's go to Isaiah chapter 11. And it says, and a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai. Okay, that's Jesse. A rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, which is Jesse, and a sprout from his root shall be fruitful. Now it talks about how it's going to be fruitful and it's going to grow. So if we have a look at it, let's continue to have a look at this so that we can understand, because remember, we are building a whole understanding of what the Father is saying. So he says, thus the Master, I shall take off the top of this high cedar, and I myself shall pluck off a tender one from the topmost of its young twigs, and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the mountain heights of Israel I shall plant it, and it shall bring forth branches and bear fruit and become a big cedar. So it's going to become a big tree. And under it shall dwell birds of every sort. So now we have to look at this and let us read. And he says, and from the stump of Yeshai and a sprout. Now we go back to Isaiah chapter 11. And it says, from its root shall bear fruit. The spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahuwah, and shall make his breath in the fear of Yahuwah, and he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and shall slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and trustworthiness the girdle of his waist. Then, if you come back to verse 10, now it says, and in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai. There shall be a root that will come off from Jesse, from King David. So from King David's line, there's going to be one that's going to come. The root of Yeshai, the root of Jesse, standing as a banner to the people. Unto him the nation shall seek. You see, all those birds are going to come and find shade on that tree, and it's going to bear much fruit. So, standing as a banner to the people, unto the nation shall seek, and his rest shall be esteemed. And it shall be in that day that Yahuwah sets his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people. So this is when Yahushua is going to come. And only when it's from the time of Yahushua that there is going to be a second time a people that are going to be recovered. The remnant of his people who are left from Ashur, and from Mitzrayim, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, from the islands of the sea. And he shall rise a banner for the nations, and gather the outcasts of Israel, and assemble the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. And the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside, and the adversaries of Yehudah be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, and Yehudah not trouble Ephraim. And this is why this is the two houses that become one house. Yehudah shall not envy, so Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, because right now Ephraim envies Yehudah because Yehudah is in the land and Israel may not return to the land right now. So they envy the fact that they are the ones that are able to dwell in the land. And Yehudah not trouble Ephraim. But it says, and the adversaries of Yehudah be cut off, means their enemies will be cut off. And right now, that's not what you see happening in the land. So it still has to happen. So then we go and we look at Jeremiah chapter 23. And now if we look at Jeremiah 23, let's read from verses 1 to verse 8. And it says, woe to the shepherds, destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, thus said Yahuwah, Eloah of Israel, against the shepherds who feed my people. So you see, this is exactly what the Father had me minister. Was it last week that he had me reading Jeremiah chapter 23? Because it's the false shepherds, the false teachers. It's these people that will lead the people astray by the falsehood that they speak out of their mouths, telling them, oh no, nothing's going to befall you. You don't need to worry about anything. So it says, therefore, thus says Yahuwah of Israel, against the shepherds who feed my people, you have scattered my flock, driven them away, and have not tended them. See, I'm pushing you for the evil of your deeds, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, I shall gather the remnant of my flock out of all the lands where I have driven them, and shall bring them back to their fold, and they shall bear and increase. So you see, there is a time coming that the Father is going to raise up the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah that is going to come back into the land. And that is when they're going to dwell safely, because there will be a shoot that is going to be over them. Now, beloveds, that is not what is going on in the land of Israel right now, because they are anti-Messiah. They are not a people that receive their Messiah. They are currently a nation that is anti-Messiah. And this is a people that is going to be able to come under one king, the root of Yeshai, the branch that's going to come forth. And it says, and I shall raise up shepherds over them, and they shall feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be discouraged, nor shall they be lacking, declares Yahuwah. You see, is that what's going on in the land right now, or are they still living in fear? See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall raise for David a branch of righteousness, and a sovereign shall reign and act wisely, and shall do right ruling and righteousness on the earth. So you see, there is a kingdom that needs to come down. The kings that are ruling and reigning, that are not the Father's kings that are ruling and reigning, are now all going to come falling down to the ground, including what is going on in the land of Israel right now. That house is going to fall for eventually the true one to be raised up in his days. So understand, we need to get the timeline right, because if we do not understand the timeline, we will be deceived with what is going on in the nations at the moment, with what we see, because of the deception that we will see and hear, but we have no understanding. And so when these things start to happen, many are going to fall. Why? Because they're not going to believe that the Father is going to judge his people, but we're going to understand this. In his days, Yehudah shall be saved, and Israel dwell safely. So you see, in the days of Yahushua, so Yahushua has come. He's already come the first time. So therefore, Yehudah needs to come to salvation. So Yehudah shall be saved. So right now, that is what needs to happen in that land. And if that's not what people are doing, then they're doing the wrong thing, because they need to be saving Yehudah. You cannot stand back and say, oh, well, they are the Father's chosen people and nothing's going to happen to them, because we are going to understand this in chapter 18. In his days, Yehudah shall be saved, and Israel dwell safely. Right now, Israel is not dwelling safely, and Yehudah is not saved. And this is his name, whereby he shall be called Yahuwah our righteousness, Yahuwah Tesitkanu. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when they shall say no more, as Yahuwah lives, who brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim, but as Yahuwah lives, who brought up and led the seed of the house of Israel out of the lands of the north, and from all the lands where I had driven them, and they shall dwell on their own soil. My heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunk man, and like a man overcome by wine, because of Yahuwah and because of his set-apart words. For the land is filled with adulterers, and that is what is going on in that land at the moment. And that is what is going on in the nations at the moment. For the land mourns because of a curse. The pastures of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their might is not right. For both prophet and priest have become defiled, even in my house. I have found their evil, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, their way is to them like a slippery way in the dark. They are driven on, and they shall fall in them. For I bring evil on them, the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. And I have seen folly in the prophets of Shemaron. They prophesy by Baal and led my people Israel astray. And this is what is going on. These prophets are prophesying by Baal, and they are leading the people of Yahuwah astray. And among the prophets of Jerusalem, I have seen a horrible matter, committing adultery, walking in falsehood, and they strengthen. Is there not the adultery? Look at, they have they have the gay parades, they have the slut parades, they have all these parades through the streets of Jerusalem, and they strengthen the hand of the evil ones so that no one turns back from his evil. So you see, then we continue to say, oh, it's the Holy Land. It's the Holy Land of the Father. And these are his chosen people. Let them continue to sin, because the Father's got a covenant with them, and nothing's going to befall them, and nothing's going to happen to them. And all of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Amorah. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of hosts, concerning the prophets, see, I'm making them eat wormwood, and shall make them drink poisoned water, for defilement has gone out. Now remember, wormwood is coming in Revelation chapter 9. It talks about the star that's going to fall, and it's going to poison the waters, and it's going to be wormwood. For the defilement has gone out into the land from the prophets of Jerusalem. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. They keep on saying to those who despise me, Yahuwah has said, you shall have peace. And to all who walk according to the stubbornness of their own heart, they say, no evil comes upon you. For who has stood in the counsel of Yahuwah and has heard his word? You see, because the problem is, many do not even stand in the counsel of Yahuwah. Why? Because they steal the words from one another. This one takes that one's word, and this one takes that one's word, and they don't stand in the counsel of the Father. And the Father despises this when they do this. And he says, and has seen and heard the word. Who has listened to his word and obeyed it? See, a storm of Yahuwah shall go forth in a rage, a willing storm. It whirls on the head of the wrong. The displeasure of Yahuwah shall not turn back until he has done and established the purpose of his heart. In the latter days, you shall understand it perfectly. So you see, in the latter days, they shall understand it perfectly. And here it says, you see, if you go to Jeremiah chapter 23, it says, is my word not like a fire, declares Yahuwah? No, let's go back to 25. I have heard what the prophets have said, who prophesy falsehood in my name, saying, I have dreamt, I have dreamt. Till when shall it be in the heart of the prophets of falsehood, and the prophets of the deceit of their own heart, who try to make my people forget my name? Is that not what has happened? By their dreams, which everyone related to his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name for Baal. They have forgotten my name for Lord. Lord is Baal. So they forgot his name, they've removed his name, and they've replaced it with Lord. The prophets who had a dream, let him relate the dream. Who has a dream, let him relate the dream. He who has my word, let him speak my word in truth. What is the chaff to the wheat, declares Yahuwah? Is not my word like a fire, declares Yahuwah, like a hammer that shatters a rock? Therefore see, I am against the prophets, declares Yahuwah, who steal my words, every one from his neighbor. So because the one is speaking it, the other one is speaking it, the other one speaks it, and this is what they do. They steal the words from one another. But that's why he says, where did you stand in my counsel? But everybody wants to speak up. But they have not sat in the Father's counsel. And this is why. Then you hear the words that come out of Israel. Oh, the Father wants to be able to help the people. Yes, the judgment is being held back, but I'm telling you, beloveds, the priesthood has fallen. Now the king, now the house of Judah has fallen. The King David's house has fallen, which means that there is going to be great destruction that is coming. And you must know, when that comes about, that is the shaking for all the nations, because great destruction is on our doorstep. And this is what we've got to understand. So I'm going to stop here for the sake of time, and then I'm going to continue with the second part, because we cannot make this too long.